2. Where we are now. Then, like the Zapatistas we are, we thought that it was not enough to stop engaging in dialogue with the government, but it was necessary to continue on ahead in the struggle, in spite of those lazy parasites of politicians. The EZLN then decided to carry out, alone and on their side, unilateral in other words, because just one side, the San Andres Accords regarding indigenous rights and culture. For 4 years, since the middle of 2001 until the middle of 2005, we have devoted ourselves to this and to other things which we are going to tell you about. Fine. We then began encouraging the autonomous rebel Zapatista municipalities, which is how the people are organized in order to govern and to govern themselves, in order to make themselves stronger. This method of autonomous government was not simply invented by the EZLN, but rather it comes from several centuries of indigenous resistance and from the Zapatistas' own experience. It is the self-governance of the communities. In other words, no one from outside comes to govern, but the people themselves decide, among themselves, who governs and how, and if they do not obey, they are removed. If the one who governs does not obey the people, they pursue them. They are removed from authority, and another comes in. But then we saw that the autonomous municipalities were not level. There were some that were more advanced, and which had more support from civil society, and others were more neglected. The organization was lacking to make them more on par with each other. And we also saw that the EZLN, with its political military component, was involving itself in decisions which belonged to the democratic authorities, civilians as they say. And here the problem is that the political military component of the EZLN is not democratic, because it is an army. And we saw that the military being above, and the democratic below, was not good, because what is democratic should not be decided militarily. It should be the reverse, the democratic political governing above, and the military obeying below. Or, perhaps, it would be better with nothing below, just completely level, without any military. And that is why the Zapatistas are soldiers, so that there will not be any soldiers. Fine. What we then did about this problem was to begin separating the political military from the autonomous and democratic aspects of the organization in the Zapatista communities. And so, actions and decisions which had previously been made and taken by the EZLN were being passed, little by little, to the democratically elected authorities in the villages. It is easy to say, of course, but it was very difficult in practice, because many years have passed, first in the preparation for the war, and then the war itself, and the political military aspects have become customary. But, regardless, we did so because it is our way to do what we say, because, if not, why should we go around saying things if we do not then do them? That was how the good government juntas were born, in August of 2003, and through them, self-learning and the exercise of govern-obeying has continued. From that time and until the middle of 2005, the EZLN leadership has no longer involved itself in giving orders in civil matters. But it has accompanied and helped the authorities who were democratically elected by the peoples. It has also kept watch that the peoples and national and international civil society are kept well informed concerning the aid that is received and how it is used. And now we are passing the work of safeguarding good government to the Zapatista support bases, with temporary positions which are rotated, so that everyone learns and carries out this work. Because we believe that a people which does not watch over its leaders is condemned to be enslaved, and we fought to be free, not to change masters every 6 years. The EZLN, during these 4 years, also handed over to the good government juntas the autonomous municipalities, the aid and contacts which they had attained throughout Mexico and the world during these years of war and resistance. The EZLN had also, during that time, been building economic and political support which allowed the Zapatista communities to make progress with fewer difficulties in the building of their community, of their autonomy, and in improving their living conditions. It is not much, but it is far better than what they had prior to the beginning of the uprising in January of 1994. If you look at one of those studies the governments make, you will see that the only indigenous communities which have improved their living conditions, whether in health, education, food, or housing, were those which are in Zapatista territory, which is what we call where our villages are. And all of that has been possible because of the progress made by the Zapatista villages and because of the very large support which has been received from good and noble persons, whom we call civil societies, and from their organizations throughout the world. As if all these people have made another world is possible a reality, but through actions, not just words. And the villages have made good progress. Now there are more compañeros and compañeras who are learning to govern. And even though little by little there are more women going into this work, but there is still a lack of respect for the compañeras, and they need to participate more in the work of the struggle. And also, through the good government juntas, coordination has been improved between the autonomous municipalities, and the resolution of distribution of projects and aid given by the civil society from all over the world has become more level. Health and education have improved, although there is still a good deal lacking for it to be what it should be. The same is true for housing and food, and in some areas there has been much improvement with the problem of land, because the lands recovered from the finqueros are being distributed. But there are areas which continue to suffer from a lack of lands to cultivate. And there has been great improvement in the support from national and international civil society, because previously everyone went wherever they wanted, and now the good government juntas are directing them to where the greatest need exists. And similarly, everywhere there are more compañeros and compañeras who are learning to relate to persons from other parts of Mexico and of the world. They are learning to respect and to demand respect. They are learning that there are many worlds, and that everyone has their place, their time, and their way, and therefore there must be mutual respect between everyone. We, the Zapatistas of the EZLN, have devoted this time to our primary force, to the peoples who support us. And the situation has indeed improved some. No one can say that the Zapatista organization and struggle has been without point, but rather, even if they were to do away with us completely, our struggle has indeed been of some use. But it is not the Zapatista villages which have grown. But it is not just the Zapatista villages which have grown. The EZLN has also grown. Because what has happened during this time is that new generations have renewed our entire organization. They have added new strength. The comandantes and comandantas, who were in their maturity at the beginning of the uprising of 1994, now have the wisdom they gained in the war and in the 12 years of dialogue, with thousands of men and women from throughout the world. The members of the CCRI, the Zapatista political organizational leadership, is now counseling and directing the new ones who are entering our struggle, as well as those who are holding leadership positions. For some time now, the committees, which is what we call them, have been preparing an entire new generation of commandantes and commandantas who, following a period of instruction and testing, are beginning to learn the work of organizational leadership and to discharge their duties. And it also so happens that our insurgents, insurgentas, militants, local and regional responsibles, as well as support bases, who were youngsters at the beginning of the uprising, are now mature men and women, combat veterans, and natural leaders in their units and communities. And those who were children in that January of '94 are now young people who have grown up in the resistance, and they have been trained in the rebel dignity lifted up by their elders throughout these 12 years of war. These young people have a political, technical, and cultural training that we who began the Zapatista movement did not have. This youth is now, more and more, sustaining our troops as well as leadership positions in the organization. Yet indeed, all of us have seen the deceits by the Mexican political class and the destruction which their actions have caused in our patria. And we have seen the great injustices and massacres that neoliberal globalization causes throughout the world. But we will speak to you of that later. And so the EZLN has resisted 12 years of war, of military, political, ideological, and economic attacks, of siege, of harassment, of persecution, and they have not vanquished us. We have not sold out nor surrendered, and we have made progress. More compañeros from many places have entered into the struggle, so that, instead of making us weaker after so many years, we have become stronger. Of course, there are problems which can be resolved by more separation of the political military from the civil democratic. But there are things, the most important ones, such as our demands for which we struggle, which have not been fully achieved. To our way of thinking, what we see in our heart, we have reached a point, and what we see in our heart, we have reached a point where we cannot go any further. And, in addition, it is possible that we could lose everything we have if we remain as we are and do nothing more in order to move forward. The hour has come to take a risk once again, and to take a step which is dangerous, but which is worthwhile. Because, perhaps united with other social sectors who suffer from the same wants as we do, it will be possible to achieve what we need and what we deserve. A new step forward in the indigenous struggle is only possible if the indigenous join together with workers, campesinos, students, teachers, employees, the workers of the city and of the countryside. To be continued. From the mountains of the Mexican Southeast, Clandestine Revolutionary Indigenous Committee of the General Command of the Zapatista Army of National Liberation, Mexico, in the 6th month of the year 2005,